And we're here with Monsignor Massie to talk a little bit about the man, Cardinal John Henry Newman, and the times that he lived in and how those times influenced him and how he then really made a big impact on those times. We know that he was born in London in 1801. And tell us a little bit more about his evolution.
I think he is born in the 1801, he dies in 1888, which means he practically lives through the entire 19th century. The 19th century in Great Britain was a great time. One, it was the pinnacle of the British Empire. Queen Victoria was on the throne. It was a time that saw the expansion of the British Empire. It was a great time of literary people who influenced England and certainly influenced probably our own educations. So we had writers like Jane Austen has just died, okay? So she introduces us to the Victorian period. You have Shelley, Keats, Byron. You have Charles Dickens. You have the time of the Industrial Revolution. You have people moving from the suburbs into the cities. You have the social situations going on there with many people in the streets, with children in the streets, and so Charles Dickens is writing.
Sure.
You also have controversies in the church at this time, don't you? You have Pius IX, who is the Pope at this time for a greater part of the Victorian period. You have the Oxford movement, which is going on in Oxford at this time. You have a interest both literarily and theologically in the patristics, the fathers of the church after the apostles who have written, and the interpretation that they have been given and the formation of the tradition that comes to be known as the Catholic and ultimately the Orthodox tradition. Cardinal Newman, or John Henry Newman, is a writer.
He's really an intellectual, and a popular one.
He is a writer. This is a gentleman of that era where one writes letters, where one engages in intellectual conversation. So there's a great body, a corpus of writing that he leaves us with. This is a man who becomes a pastor. He is, of course, an Anglican, and becomes an Anglican pastor in St. Mary's in Oxford, which is still there, which I visited.
Nice.
Where he preached. It was also here that he gave his final farewell homily to his congregation when he embraces Catholicism.
What do you think his main impact then is through his writings? I know his autobiography and his poetry are among the writings that have been lauded.
Yes, and his poetry and his writings speak of, I think, the journey of a soul, the journey of someone not necessarily looking all the time, but in love with God, in love with people, and asks all sorts of wonderful questions. So, for instance, we just saw in the aftermath of Vatican II the development of the laity. John Henry Newman had seen the church in three areas: the hierarchy, the people, and the papacy. Well, and the clergy. I'm sorry, and the clergy. Well, and he saw these had to be balanced. These had to be balanced out. So if you had a church that was overly dominated by the hierarchy and not enough lay involvement, you have a problem. Right. You have to have a balance. And isn't that what we are trying to do these days with the development of the laity? And
that was really my last question, because we're running out of time, unfortunately, because there's so much to cover, I know. But really, what does he have to teach us today? Who might he be likened to, perhaps, nowadays, if anyone? And if not, what does he have to teach us today? How is he relevant today?
I think in today's society, he was very involved in dealing with intellectual discussions. But he also left us with a great quote, which was, "Heart speaks to heart." In a day when we are in need of re-evangelization of our own Catholic people, we have to listen to the heart of the issue that is being presented to us. Not only are we ready to give an answer or to correct, but to listen to the heart of the person who is asking the question, what is this person going through? And then to speak to that heart. So in some way, there's a great movement for evangelization in what Newman is doing. And it's no mistake that on non-Catholic campuses, you had the Catholic center called the Newman Centers
Sure.
for this very reason.
Well, Monsignor Massie, fascinating as always with all of your insights, and certainly very knowledgeable on the subject. Thank you.
Thank you.